one towards another, via Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Be seated, please. Before we begin, Senator Professor Floyd Morris is online, and I seek your permission for him to participate in the meeting. He's in Egypt, which is really remarkable. One of these days, I hope to go there and see the sights that you are seeing. So, permission granted? Before we begin as well, we have a number of visitors in the gallery, majority of whom are officers and members of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. We know why you are here. So welcome, you're just up the road, you're always welcome to come and spend some time with us. And just before I leave the question of the trade union movement, I want to inform you. I'm going to tell you something that you didn't know, neither did Senator Brown, Lambert Brown, your colleague, unionist. In 1979, I applied for a job at the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union as a legal officer. The president at the time was Mr. Hugh Lawson Shearer. Well, since you don't see me up there, you know I didn't get the job, right? But I've always had a soft spot for the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. And in fact, my son Christian is on the executive of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. So my family has always had close association with the union. So welcome. I never get the job, but it has skipped a generation. So that's that. Members, before we continue, it is with regret that I inform you that Senator Don Webby has tendered his resignation from the Senate in order to focus on his health and his recovery. The tongue of good report has been heard in relation to Senator Webby and his service to the country in many quarters. Senator Webby first became a member of the Senate in 2007, during which time he also served as the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Senator Webby returned to the Senate in 2016 and has served with distinction since then. On behalf of the Senate, and I speak for both sides, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Senator Webby for his years of service and unwavering commitment to our nation. We offer our support during this challenging time and pray for Senator Webby's full recovery. Don, we look forward to your future contribution in both the public and private sector in the shortest of orders. Thank you very much. Statements by ministers, announcements, bills brought from the Honorable House of Representatives, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions. Questions and answers to questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is intended today to take questions standing in the name of Senator Fraser Binns at number 3 of the question notice paper, but I'm still awaiting the printed copies, and I'm therefore proposing that we recommit this agenda item after the taking of the State of the Nation on the public business to allow us the time.
Thank you very much. So the question is that the item be recommitted. In favor? And I think that Senator Bunting had a issue there, but he'll raise it at that time as well. Mr. 1 minute, please. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. The presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business. Madam?
Mr. President, 2 weeks ago, a notice of motion was given to open the debate on the State of the Nation by Senator Cavan Gale, and it is our great pleasure this morning to have him formally open that debate with your leave.
Thank you very much, Madam Leader. Senator President General Cavan Gale. For your information, Senator Brown, it's Dusty Rose.
By the way, I like your title. Mr. President, today I rise to commence the debate in this year's State of the Nation. And I do so, sir, with a sense of pride, privilege, and honor of being a part of this honorable Senate. Let me first thank the most honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, for his confidence reposed in me as I continue to serve in this upper house of Parliament. Mr. President, my life in this Parliament has been made easier because of the diligent and dedicated support I have received from the devoted staff. I owe them a debt of gratitude, and I'm feeling as if I'm part of their team. I thank them for their continued support. Mr. President, let me use this opportunity to congratulate 2 members of the parliamentary staff on their achievement of national honors. Mr. Alan Taylor for keeping parliamentary procedures orderly for over 30 years. And Ms. Sandra Clements for faithfully recording Jamaica's legislative history for over 29 years. And Sandra, you now have the opportunity to inscribe and entrench your own name in Hansard. Mr. President, this Senate is quite an interesting combination of members. I believe expertly picked, with each demonstrative qualities, competence, and personal characteristics. No 2 members is alike, and that is what makes us very interesting. Every Friday, sir, I look forward to what each member has to offer. This term has been quite an interesting journey, and I wish to commend and congratulate our former colleague, Matthew Samuda, for moving to another place where he will be expertly continuing the work of the government. I am going to miss my neighbor, Don Webby. We usually have a lot of quiet chats, but Don has demonstrated a level of excellence in this Senate. We are truly going to miss him. And I wish him well for his health and his future endeavors. Mr. President, on March 11, 1986, I joined the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union as a trainee. And this year, the union is celebrating 86 years of dedicated service to the working class of this country. Formed by Sir Alexander Bustamante and built on the shoulders of the most honorable Hugh Lawson Shearer, I have the esteemed privilege of being its leader for the past 17 years, and that has been an interesting journey. My success so far, sir, has been tremendously supported by the team that is here, and I thank them for their tremendous support. President, family for me represents a foundation that provides support, a unity of acceptance, and unconditional sacrifice that brings joy, happiness, and love. And I'm glad that I have the continuous support of my wife, Christine, and my two boys, Krishna and Corey. An enlightened society, sir, is one that is supported and backed by the togetherness of closeness of families. Mr. President, as we stand at the precipice of a crucial juncture in our nation's journey, it becomes increasingly evident that the challenges we face within the global economic landscape demand a unified response. Today, I stand before this esteemed Senate, not merely as a representative, but as a steward of vision. A vision that hinges on the transformative power of unity, collaboration, and collective action. The theme echoing through this year's discourse of mine is moving Jamaica forward. Resounds as more than a mere slogan. It embodies a call to arms, a rallying cry for all stakeholders to join hands in confronting the multifaceted challenges that lies ahead. The pathway towards prosperity, sir, as a continuous journey, is not a solitary road, but one woven through the tapestry of collaboration. A collaboration that transcends political boundaries, industry domains, and societal segments. Mr. President, our nation, Jamaica, stands poised at the crossroad of adversity and opportunity. The global economy, amidst its trials and tribulation, presents both challenges and prospects. Embracing this juncture necessitates a paradigm shift, one where the traditional divides dissipate to give rise to a harmonious convergence of diverse perspectives, talents, and ideologies. Today, I want to implore all stakeholders, be it employers or employees, industry leaders or the trade unions, civil society groups or the opposition, to recognize the gravity of this moment.
You believe you were sent by God?
Yes.
Shaping the destiny of our beloved nation. Mr. President, essentially, we need to work together as a nation for progress and growth. We must foster an environment conducive to collaboration, a space, Mr. President, where differences are not stumbling blocks, but building blocks, where dialogue transcends rhetoric to yield tangible solutions, building coalitions, fostering alliances, and nurturing partnerships. These are not mere endeavors, but more imperatives in our quest for progress. President, our journey towards a more resilient, equitable, and prosperous future hinges on our collective commitment to forge alliances with academia, policymakers, and every stakeholder invested in the well-being of our nation. The mantle of responsibility falls upon us to champion a cause that transcends individual gains, a cause that champions the greater good. President, let me recognize a key instrument in the symphony of partnership in Jamaica, the National Partnership Council, that is driven by our own Senate colleague, and I hope it will continue, on the newly minted Minister of Education, Dr. Dana Morris Dixon. Congratulations, Dr. Dixon, on your ascendancy to a new role. But I hope for the sense of the national partnership, you will still hold the reins of carrying that together. Let us embark on this journey, not as desperate entities, but as a symphony, each instrument unique, yet resonating in harmony to compose the melody of progress. Let us heed the call in moving Jamaica forward, for it is through unity that we shall overcome, thrive, and emerge victorious. In the spirit of collaboration, sir, and shared response, I invite each one of you to join hands, hearts, and minds as we set forth on this transformative odyssey. Mr. President, in addressing the evolving landscape of the labor market within the context of moving Jamaica forward, it is crucial to recognize the profound shifts propelled by technological advancement, globalization, demographic changes, and the looming spectrum of climate change. These transformations ripple through the very fabric of employment, altering its composition, reshaping task dynamics, and demanding a recalibration of requisite skills. Jamaica, sir, stands at the nexus of these global forces, where the conventional boundaries of work are being redrawn. President, embracing these changes necessitates a concerted effort, one that transcends individual sectors and ideologies and pivots towards a collaborative, unified response. And if you note, there's a common thread in my presentation about collaboration and partnership. Mr. President, the call for improved quality and novel approaches to lifelong learning resonates profoundly amidst these tides of change. President, recognizing that skill serves as the bedrock of productivity, it becomes imperative to foster an ecosystem that not only cultivates these skills, but also adapts them to the evolving needs of our labor market. Investing, sir, in lifelong learning initiatives and active labor market programs serves as a linchpin in fortifying the Jamaican workforce against the tumultuous waves of change. These measures act as vital buffers, facilitating smoother transitions between jobs and empowering enterprises to adaptly navigate against shifts. We are operating in a global economy where the world of work is changing, and we must prepare ourselves for that change. And one of the only critical and crucial ways to do so is by working together collaboratively. Moreover, sir, the symbiotic relationship between skills development and social protection cannot be overstated. Empowering individuals through skills acquisition not only enhances their employability, but also augments their resilience in the face of market disruptions. Concurrently, robust social protection measures serves as safety nets, bolstering the workforce during any transition and fostering a sense of security amidst any uncertainty. And workers will tell you, sir, once there is the sense of uncertainty, they want to feel protected. And so, President, by fostering an environment that champions lifelong learning, by bolstering active labor market programs, and by fortifying social protection measures, Jamaica, sir, is poised not merely to weather these challenges, but to harness them as catalysts for growth. And this concerted effort, sir, in my mind, this collective commitment to empower the workforce transcends rhetoric. It stands as a testament to our resolve to forge a labor force that is not just resilient, but also adaptive to the inclusive and future readiness. So we must, as a country, for our workforce to prepare ourselves for future changes. In essence, President, by embracing the imperative of lifelong learning and by fortifying labor market programs and by underpinning these efforts with robust social protection, I will continue to repeat that, Jamaica can lay the groundwork for a labor market that navigates challenges with resilience, empowers its workforce, and charts a course towards sustainable prosperity. President, this collective endeavor underscores the essence of moving Jamaica forward. A clarion call for unity, collaboration, and collective action in sculpting a labor market that thrives amongst the winds of change. Jamaica, sir, in my mind, could consider a multifaceted approach to addressing the challenges in the labor market and aligned with my theme of moving Jamaica forward. The first one I would want to recommend is around skills development initiatives. President, we must have targeted training programs, develop specialized initiatives in emerging fields like renewable energy, technology, and sustainable agriculture to align with the global trends and local needs. The other thing is that we have to forge partnerships between and with educational institutions. Forge alliances between government bodies, the private sector, and educational institutions to design a curricula that bridges the gap between theoretical knowledge and the practical skills required by industry. So you're not only treating with the theoretical skills and the theoretical knowledge, but the practicality in what is needed for the industries that continue to serve us. Mr. President, the much talked about and sometimes forgotten, depending on which angle you want to take it, apprenticeship program. We have to strengthen apprenticeship schemes that offer hands-on experience, especially for youth, fostering a skilled workforce and industry-specific knowledge. You know, there are some persons, President, that they pursue education and they enter the workforce and they stop. Lifelong learning and upskilling is continuous. We have to establish, however, accessible and affordable online platforms for continuous learning, enabling individuals to upskill or reskill at their own pace. Create that environment that allows them, notwithstanding the demand of their work, to be able to access learning at their own pace. Mr. President, I also believe that, tax incentives for education is important. We have to encourage continuous education by providing tax incentives or subsidies for individuals investing in future education, especially, sir, in areas aligned with national priorities. Mr. President, we're operating in a labor market that continues to shift. And job transition support is important. As people move from industry to industry, people move from job to jobs. And so we have to develop what I would call a comprehensive program to aid workers in transitioning between jobs. This should include career counseling, job matching, and financial support during these transitional periods. And there are those in the labor force, or those in training or in school that believes in entrepreneurship. This is something we have to foster. We have to promote and foster entrepreneurship through mentorship programs, access to funding, and providing resources to encourage the creation of small and medium-term enterprises. There are many students out there that believe that they would want to start their own business, fostering in entrepreneurship, and we need as a country to support those initiatives. Mr. President, in my last State of the Nation debate, I spoke about social protection measures. And I will continue to repeat and to reinforce them. You know, there's a saying that if there's something good, it needs to be repeated. Unemployment insurance is critical. We must introduce or expand the thought around unemployment insurance scheme to provide a safety net for workers who may have to move between jobs to reduce financial vulnerability. It goes without saying. It does not replace the Redundancy Entitlement Act. Mr. President, healthcare and pension schemes. Strengthening healthcare and pension schemes to ensure workers have access to essential services and secure retirement. And again, the collaboration of partnership. Mr. President, I believe that, we need some sort of a roundtable discussion or a task force with intended objectives to establish forums where the government, industry leaders, trade unions and academia and civil society engage in regular discussions to address the labor market challenges and develop actionable strategies. Not a situation where we respond to a challenge, but where we are more proactive in meeting consistently, in treating with the demanding needs of the labor market. And I want to, if my colleague Dunwebby was here, incentive for private sector partnership, encourage private sector involvement through tax breaks, grants, or partnership in skill development and job creation initiatives. I want to say, though, President, that in the promotion of dealing and addressing the changes of the labor market, data is important. And that's what Don would have said. The labor market information system, implementing system that track labor market trends, that track skills gap, that tracks employment opportunities, and aiding in evidence-based policy formation and targeted interventions. This is driven now by getting the data, analyzing the data, and using that data to drive the policy decisions. Mr. President, by implementing these strategies in a cohesive manner and fostering collaboration among stakeholders, Jamaica can navigate the evolving labor market landscape effectively. This comprehensive approach not only addresses the immediate challenges, but also cultivates a workforce equipped to thrive in an ever-changing global economy. And so addressing these concerns raised by employers in Jamaica regarding this potential influx of overseas workers to support the labor force amid economic growth. It is a complex issue that I believe requires a balanced approach. And as a trade unionist, my perspective on prioritizing the upskilling and well-being of the local workforce is crucial. I hereby offer a response outlining how the country can address this issue along with some policy recommendations. First of all, sir, we have to deal with the skills gap assessment. Before considering an increase in overseas labor market, let's conduct a comprehensive assessment of the skills gap in the domestic workforce. This assessment should involve a collaboration between government agencies, the trade unions, because we are not going to be left out of this conversation, industry associations, and the educational institutions to identify what are those specific skills that are in demand in the various industries. And Mr. President, the next move is to invest in education and training programs to address the identified skills gap. And this can involve vocational training, the apprenticeship schemes that we spoke about, and a partnership with educational institutions to ensure that local workforce is adequately prepared for the jobs in demand. Now, this need for increased labor, and it assumes that, labor has no boundaries. It no longer have any borders. Workers are moving all over the place. Workers have become nomadic. So what is it that would retain workers that some don't want to talk about? Mr. President, in the retention of the workforce, we cannot leave behind improving wages and conditions that is essential for attracting and retaining local talent. Collaborate with labor unions, talk to labor unions, allow labor unions to come in and assist in determining how we can improve the terms and conditions of employment. This not only benefits the local workforce, but it also, sir, enhances the country's attractiveness to overseas workers. So it makes no sense that we want to attract overseas workers, but we are not putting in the terms and conditions of employment suitable to attract and to retain. We also have to review and update our labor market regulations to ensure that they protect the rights of both local and overseas workers. This includes addressing issues like fair employment contracts, safety standards, and legal protections for all workers, and ensure the transfer of knowledge. So if you bring the external workforce, the external workers to take on jobs that you can't satisfy, then there needs to be that transfer of knowledge and dependency. Mr. President, I have the confidence that as a government and as a country, we are taking the necessary steps to continue to train our workforce. The Heart Trust, as our national training agency, is doing an exceptional job, and I want to commend them. Mr. President, it must be noted so that since the removal of tuition fees for training up to level 4 at the Heart Trust, more individuals aged 17 and above have gained access to skills-building opportunities that prepare them for meaningful jobs. In line with this, the Learning and Investment for Transformation, called the LIFT program, launched in 2023, has successfully placed around 450 young people in public and private sector on-the-job training positions, equipping them with essential skills and social mobility documents. Mr. President, with Cohort 2 set to begin in early 2025, the Trust remains committed to adopting its program to meet the evolving demands of the labor market. Recognizing the impact of technology on modern work, the Trust has introduced labor market-driven programs in areas such as geometrics, geospatial services, social media management, renewable energy, mobile application development, mechatronics, entrepreneurship, electric hybrid vehicular repair, digital animation, events planning, and mobile robotics, ensuring a workforce ready for today's challenges and opportunities. Mr. President, the government, through Heart Trust, is moving Jamaica forward. No, this one coming up requires water. Yeah, it is the parliamentary water. Now let's see how I perform after. Mr. President, As tourism is a key driver of Jamaica's economy, it is vital to ensure that the growth and sustainability of this sector are aligned with the development of our people. The protection of our natural resources and a collective approach to addressing climate change, Mr. President. I take this opportunity to commend our Tourism Minister, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, for the remarkable work that he is doing. The future, sir, the future of Jamaica's tourism must prioritize strengthening local linkages to ensure that the benefits of tourism are felt throughout the economy. Local businesses, especially small and medium enterprise, should be positioned to supply goods and services to the tourism sector. The government and the private sector must work together to enhance the capacity of local suppliers, such as the farmers, the artisans and manufacturers, enabling them to meet the quality and quantity demands of hotels, restaurants, and cruise operators. This can be achieved through technical assistance, training, and financing programs designed to elevate these businesses. Mr. President, tourism operators should be incentivized to employ locally, ensuring that more Jamaicans are not only engaged in tourism, but are also climbing the ladder from entry-level positions to managerial roles. Mr. President, it is essential for the longevity of the tourism sector and its ability to withstand external shocks, such as climate change and economic downturns. Tourism jobs must not only be available, but must also be secured and sustainable.
At Harbor Freight, we do business differently from the other guys. We design and test our own tools.
I say green jobs, I say Senator Brown cringe. But I'm talking about those jobs that are focused on energy efficiency, renewable energy use in hotel, and ecotourism initiatives. And so our training programs should be geared that teaches skills relating to sustainability. It should be integrated into our educational systems and our vocational systems. And I have two delegates here from one of the hotels that we represent. And part of the constant trust, sir, part of the constant trust is the workers in the tourism sector often face precarious employment conditions, such as low wages, long hours, and limited benefits. We need to work towards bettering the terms of conditions of employment for tourism workers. Including fair wages, access to health care, job security, and career development opportunities. This would reduce turnover and enhance service quality. I want to say, sir, that as a trade unionist, I stand with the Royalton employees in their recent industrial action, advocating for fair wages, better employment terms, and respectful treatment. But let me state clearly that, for the records, that I do believe that the Royalton is a very strong brand in the tourism industry. And I wish them the best in their rebound from that episode. But sir, multinational hotels chains like those should adhere to labor standards and provide competitive living wages for their workforce. These corporations must recognize their duty to sustain ethical and globally competitive wage structures, particularly in regions with economic challenges. Multinationals must uphold both local and international labor standards, ensuring fair working hours, equitable treatment, safe workplaces, and representational rights. I take that as another applause coming from somewhere else. They must also, sir, demonstrate the respect for labor standards that fosters job satisfaction, productivity, and ethical practices in the workplace. The government has a fundamental role in protecting hospitality workers. And the government is asked to strengthen labor protections, enforce minimum wage standards reflective of the cost of living, and prevent exploitative practices in the hospitality industry. Regulatory bodies, sir, they too have a responsibility that they should monitor multinational corporations closely, holding accountable those that fail to meet fair labor standards. President, we urge all stakeholders, be it employers, government, to support the rights of hospitality workers to fair treatment and competitive wages and respectful work environment. As a matter of fact, sir, you know, our tourism workers offers in terms of service to this sector, what they offer, what they provide, what is boasted about. No employee in the tourism sector should be paid at rates of minimum wage. I want to strongly suggest that I believe in my mind that there should be some sort of a threshold to be set for earnings in workers in the tourism sector. And I want to go a little further. And I know that there are some employers in this sector that is going to cringe about this. But I believe in the context of the earnings in the service, and for their own return on investment, we should consider a portion of those total earnings in foreign exchange in the form of performance incentives. It is essential that we enhance labor rights within the tourism sector. Yo, Lambert, cringe at that one already. And this can be achieved by implementing, stronger regulations around working conditions, particularly around fair pay, safety, and non-exploitative contracts. Tourism workers must be empowered to negotiate better terms of employment through collective bargaining agreements. And trade unions, notwithstanding what some people may think and believe, trade unions play a key role in advocating for tourism workers, ensuring their rights are protected. Mr. President, critical to this is the comprehensive training, the human capital development. The future of Jamaican tourism hinges on a well-trained workforce, vocational training in hospitality services, languages, because I believe tourism workers must be able to learn a second language, including sign language. And management should be expanded to made widely accessible. The emphasis should not only be on the technical skills, but also, sir, on the soft skills such as communication, customer service that are critical to tourism. We must also ensure that workers are continuously exposed to professional development opportunities. The tourism industry is rapidly evolving, and to keep up with the international standards, our workforce must be given the tools to adapt through lifelong learning. Mr. President, something that we don't talk about, but I'm going to represent it today, and that's the impact of climate change on tourism and the workers in Jamaica. Climate change is perhaps one of the most pressing threats to the future of the Jamaican tourism industry. Rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and environmental degradation threaten our beaches and coral reefs and ecosystems. Core attractions for tourists. The impacts of tourism workers are also profound, from the loss of jobs due to damage to infrastructure to the increasing uncertainty and instability caused by frequent natural disasters. Mr. President, Jamaica, like much of the Caribbean, is experiencing more intense hurricanes and tropical storms leading to damaged infrastructure, lost revenue, and displaced workforce. Rising sea levels are eroding our beaches, reducing the attractiveness of key tourist destinations like Negril and Montego Bay, which will likely lead to reduced visitation and job losses in these areas. Our coral reefs, which are central to marine tourism, are being destroyed by ocean acidification and bleaching, impacting industries such as diving and snorkeling, as well as the broader ecosystem that support fisheries and coastal livelihoods. Mr. President, Jamaica and the Caribbean must adopt collective approaches to mitigate the effects of climate change on tourism. This involves another collaborative approach between the government, the private sector. We're not leaving ourselves out of it, the trade unions and civil society. Jamaica must strengthen its cooperation with not only the Caribbean nations, but other nations, even in the Pacific, to share resources, knowledge, and best practices on climate adaptation. CARICOMSA and the Caribbean Tourism Organization can spearhead joint initiatives such as Regional Climate Resilience Fund to finance infrastructure projects that protect against climate-related disasters. And so we must collectively work on creating a tourism industry that is sustainable, focusing on energy efficiency. President, let's move to the stage where we encourage our hotels, resorts, and cruise ports to transition to renewable energy sources, such as solar or wind. Let us build climate resilience infrastructure, such as green buildings and storm-resistant structures. And Mr. President, if Minister Matthew Samuda could hear us, we must promote the development of systems to manage more efficiently water conservation, as a tourism is a water-intensive industry, and droughts will only increase with climate change. We would have seen situations where guests are at a hotel and have challenges in getting water. So we have to move to put measures in place around water conservation or the retention of water. So, President, the future of tourism in Jamaica depends not only on attracting visitors, but also on investing in our human capital, strengthening local linkages, creating sustainable jobs, and addressing the profound impacts of climate change. We must act collectively through a multifaceted approach involving employers, trade unions, talk with the investors and the government to ensure that Jamaica's sustainable tourism sector remains resilient, inclusive, and sustainable for generations to come. Let us work together to protect our valued resource, our people, and the future of tourism in Jamaica. Mr. President, moving to another topic.
We're about to move to another topic. Senator Bunting.
Mr. President, the Senator Gale's time for speaking having expired, I propose that we move to give him sufficient time to complete his presentation.
The question is that the Senator's time was expired. We give him sufficient to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Against?
Thank you, colleagues. President, In 2017, a bill was tabled in Parliament aimed at promoting and maintaining a safe and healthy working environment in Jamaica. This was a matter of great importance to the government, and I hail former Minister Shahini Robinson, who brought that bill to Parliament. This is a matter of great importance to government, employers, and workers alike. It was recognized that to ensure occupational safety and health, a comprehensive legal framework was necessary. This framework would enable the shared responsibility between employers and employees to safeguard the well-being of all workers across industry. And after thorough scrutiny by a joint select committee of Parliament, I have never seen that level of probity and scrutiny in a particular legislation. Yes. The bill, sir, underwent substantive amendments and recommendations. The government, in response to these critical inputs, has now prepared a new draft of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill. It is my understanding that the government intention is to return this revised bill to Parliament for consideration. President, the significance of this legislation cannot be overstated. It represents a modern, inclusive approach to occupational safety and health, ensuring that employers and employees work together to create safer, more productive workplaces. By mandating joint responsibility, sir, we promote a culture of shared accountability where both parties collaborate to reduce hazards, prevent workplace injuries, and protect lives. That old archaic Factories Act. This legislation, sir, is more than just a legal requirement. It is a framework for improving the quality of life for Jamaican workers and increasing national productivity. But one of the most fundamental intentions of this legislation, sir, is that it ensures that every worker has the right to return home safely to their families at the end of each working day. But that legislation, I believe, Mr. President, cannot stand on its own. You know, we talk about the physical exposure to hazards and risk. And I know that at least one of my Senate colleagues will support me on the intended objective of twinning. In recognizing the Ministry of Health had previously established a corporate wellness manual, it is time for Jamaica to take a decisive step towards a national workplace wellness policy. This guideline, sir, through the Jamaica Moves program, along with the Ministry of Health, is intensifying its efforts to build capacity within the different workplace settings in which people work, learn, and play, incorporating measures that are enabling a healthier lifestyle, recognizing that a productive workforce is essential, enhancing guidelines, and moving towards a policy direction is critical at this time. This policy not only is a complementary measure to the occupational safety and health legislation, but a necessary initiative to address the holistic well-being of the workforce. President, is something that we don't talk about in terms of the mental stress that workers have to face on a daily basis. And the stress might not be just the work-related stress, but the pressures of life on its own. And so workplace wellness encompasses more than physical safety. It includes mental health, chronic disease prevention, stress management, and the overall health of employees. And so, sir, a national workplace wellness policy would formalize the guidelines for organizations to implement wellness programs that encourage healthier lifestyle, reduce illness-related absenteeism, and improve overall workplace morale. This policy is particularly significant for Jamaica, given the high incidence of non-communicable disease, such as diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease, which are often linked to workplace stress, inactivity, and poor health practices. And so, by establishing wellness programs, we can reduce healthcare costs, improve worker productivity, and foster a healthier, more resilient workforce. Moreover, a national workplace wellness policy could create a culture of well-being that extends beyond the workplace and into the broader society. When employees are healthy and balanced, their contribution to both their organization and the national economy increases, leading to long-term sustainable growth. So, Mr. President, the reintroduction of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill and the establishment of the National Workplace Wellness Policy are pivotal steps towards moving Jamaica forward, ensuring that the Jamaican workforce is safe, healthy, productive, now and for generations to come. Mr. President, another area that I've spoken about and I want to repeat and reinforce today is that as part of the trade union movement, we unequivocally reject all forms of precarious employment or any work arrangements that are imposed unilaterally on workers that fail to guarantee decent pay and conditions of employment. Mr. President, precarious employment which offers little job security, low and unsecured wages, and no access to social protection, such as pensions, health insurance, unemployment benefits is an unacceptable threat to the dignity and well-being of workers. Such conditions often leave workers without protection against unfair dismissals. It denies them vocational training opportunities and exposes them to unsafe and unhealthy working environment. Perhaps most egregious is the absence of trade union representation, which strips workers of their collective voice and limits their ability to advocate for their rights. Now, in response to these challenges, the government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Finance, has taken significant action by creating over 10,000 permanent posts in the public service, addressing the issue of contract employment. This move is a critical component of the broader transformation of the public sector, making a decisive step towards improving the livelihood of the Jamaican workforce. Mr. President, what this means for the Jamaican worker. By establishing permanent positions, the government is generating more stable, long-term employment for thousands of Jamaicans. This not only boosts job security, but also fosters a sense of stability and confidence among workers in the public sector. This permanent employment also provides access to essential social protection, including health insurance. They now have the opportunity to be part of the pension scheme. Mr. President, this ensures that workers have the safety net during illness, retirement, or periods of unemployment, allowing them to meet their needs and live with dignity. It also, these permanent positions come with better job security and the promise of safe and healthier working conditions. This guarantees that workers can perform their duties without fear of sudden dismissals or unsafe environment. It also, sir, through this secure employment, workers can gain access to opportunities for personal growth, including training and skill development. This creates pathways to career progression, enable workers to improve their qualification and advance in their chosen fields. The government's commitment to improving the public sector also supports the enforcement of every worker's right to training and lifelong learning. This, sir, does not only enhance his individual skills, but also ensures that Jamaica's workforce remains competitive and capable of adapting to evolving economic demands. President, workers in the JCF, Sierra, the health sector, the primary and high school.
So if I ever need to film guests, but we're literally on the other side of the planet.
Excited to be on the show, Jordan.
Riverside makes tackling this tough.
Sierra, the health sector, the primary and high school, many workers, sir, was moved from contract to permanent. The office attendant, the groundsmen, the messengers, the motor vehicle washers, the attendants, the record officers. President, in the health sector, those patient care assistants that was always on contract, those health record technicians, the customer service officer, the junior resident, sir, the community health aides, sir, they are now permanent. In the schools, sir, the cooks, the caregivers, the guidance counselor, the clerical assistants, sir. In the national solid waste, the sweeper is now permanent. The sanitation officer is now permanent. The truck driver has pride of permanence. Mr. President, this action by the government in moving some public sector workers from contract to permanent is like moving workers from the fringes and bringing them into the fore. Mr. President, I want to use this opportunity to acknowledge the great work of Dr. Nigel Clarke as the past Minister of Finance and his work in the public service. You know, in my mind, he was the only Minister of Finance that I knew that balanced the economy, the fiscal space, and significantly interfaced with the trade unions in the public service to the extent of ensuring one of the highest level of compensation for public sector workers. Mr. President, this transformation of permanence in the public sector is a profound step forward in promoting decent work in Jamaica. However, the responsibility does not rest solely with the government. Mr. President, I want to call on the private sector to follow suit, take proactive measures to promote decent employment. The private sector must adopt practices that guarantees fair wages, job security, and social protections, whilst also providing opportunities for career development and the freedom, sir, the freedom to join trade unions of their choice. And by doing so, we will create a more equitable and just society, where all workers are treated with dignity and respect, and that Jamaica can continue to progress towards a prosperous future. Mr. President, as we move Jamaica forward, we must ensure that decent work, sir, is not a privilege for a few, but a right to all. And together, both the public and private sector must commit to fostering an environment where workers are valued, protected, and empowered to contribute meaningfully to the nation's development. Mr. President, the final area that I want to deal with. I want to, in furtherance of moving Jamaica forward, talk about a group of workers in this country that is, again, not often spoken about. A group of workers that works for us while we work. They're a critical part of our labor force. They are our domestic workers in Jamaica. Who play an indispensable role in the stability of Jamaican homes and by extension, the nation's social fabric. Mr. President, domestic workers not only support their own family, but also the family of their employers, thus contributing profoundly to societal stability and cohesion. Again, I make reference of the fact, when we work, they work to allow us to work. Mr. President, the government led by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness has demonstrated the ongoing commitment to these workers. We have strengthened protections and rights, including updating the national minimum wage and notably ratifying the ILO Domestic Convention 2011, number 189 in 2016, thus affirming the right of household workers to organize and negotiate collectively. By ratifying Convention number 189, Jamaica has positioned itself among the most progressive nations in the region for domestic worker protection. This convention also catalyzed the growth of the Jamaica Household Workers Union, a vital organization that has empowered domestic workers to advocate for their rights and ensure fair treatment. Mr. President, studies by Dr. Simon Black and Dr. Lauren Marsh highlight the JHW's worker-centered approach has been instrumental in enabling domestic workers to seek and obtain workplace justice, thereby turning legal rights into practical protections. It is crucial, sir, that we continue to support these efforts. Let me hail the General Secretary, Shirley Price, for being a trailblazer in the protection of members of that union. You see, only a trade unionists could see where I was going. However, Mr. President, the challenges faced by domestic workers, they remain. Many domestic workers in Jamaica still work under informal arrangements. They lack formal contracts and consistent access to social protection. The ILO has reported that 72.3% of domestic workers in the Caribbean work under informal conditions, a reality that exposes these workers to instability and limits their access to labor rights and benefits. Despite legal frameworks, enforcement gaps persist, and collective bargaining remains limited in this sector, leaving many workers to negotiate individually without adequate support. One domestic worker said, "I feel that they should enforce law so that the workers in people's home who are supposed to get rights too. Just like the office worker, the government workers, or any other worker, domestic workers are workers too." That's what one domestic worker said. Another domestic worker said, "You have some employers who do not give you what the government says you are to get. Some give you the minimum wage, but they have said that some can afford to pay more. We are saying that if you can pay more to the domestic workers, pay them more." I want to state clearly that globally, the demand for domestic workers, because you believe that these workers are just another segment of society. Yeah? They're not mentioned. But the demand for domestic workers is expected to grow considering the demographic changes, population aging, and increasing long-term care needs to the ILO. And Jamaica is no exception. Mr. President, with a rapidly aging population, a high prevalence of non-communicable disease, and a segment of the population, and Senator Morris, you in Egypt, you want to hear this, a segment of the population living with disability. Domestic workers makes up a significant portion of the Jamaican workforce because of that dependency. And in the absence of any formal community-based long-term care service, domestic workers are crucial to the provision of informal care in Jamaica. And also, with an aging population, our domestic workers are going to be in more demand. And so, President, we must take steps to protect this critical component of our labor force. I want to recommend, based on the response that I've gotten and the interface that I've had with them, in that in light of these challenges, I want to offer some recommendations. We have to strengthen the Ministry of Labor and Social Security capacity. What do I mean? There is a Pay and Conditions of Employment branch, the PCEB, it's called. It's an arm of the Industrial Relations Unit of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. The PCEB's core function is to ensure compliance with minimum standards set out in labor laws in Jamaica for non-unionized workers. Currently, the PCEB has 24 labor inspectors on the roster. Whilst the number of inspectors needed by an inspectorate can be determined by a variety of criteria, or even specific to national context, I'm of the view that the current level of staffing in the PCEB is inadequate to the task of strategic and proactive enforcement in the domestic workforce sector. And so, I believe we must allocate some more resources to enhance the ministry's ability to monitor and enforce compliance with labor standards in the domestic work sector. This would ensure, sir, that both the workers and also the employers are better informed about their rights and responsibilities under the law. So I see it as a kind of outreach, not only for the protection of the workers, not only a protection of the domestic workers, but for the awareness to those who employ domestic workers against the protective rights that should be entrenched. Mr. President, in achieving full compliance with labor standards, it not only is the key to achieving decent work for domestic workers, but would also contribute to building a fairer, more prosperous Jamaica. For instance, full compliance with the National Minimum Wage Act among just domestic workers would contribute to reducing the overall wage inequality, reduce relative poverty among domestic workers, household, and contribute to reducing poverty overall. The other thing is that domestic workers will say to you that I want to ensure that when I retire, I have some return on investment. Domestic workers want to be able to buy their own house or dwellings too. And President, we have to introduce measures administratively, remove those barriers that may have been created for domestic workers to be able to participate in the National Insurance Scheme and the NHT. So we have to set some platforms, whether it be digital or otherwise, but we have to set some platform to facilitate easier registration and contributing, thereby expanding these essential benefits to domestic workers. Again, sir, the establishment of unemployment insurance would be a critical social safety measure to protect domestic workers in their times of needs. They transition from job to job. They may lose a job because a family can't afford them anymore. But that skill set that is only confining them, that ability for social support is so immensely critical to be able to allow them to withstand the ravages and the exposure during their time of any transition. What that union has said, sir, they have indicated an intention to invest more in skills training and professionalization. So they have said, establish the Domestic Workers Institute, possibly funded or aided or supported by the government and operated by that particular union. This institute would provide training in areas such as childcare, first aid, culinary skills, promoting professionalization, and ensuring that domestic workers are equipped with the skills necessary to thrive in their roles. This is an objective that I support in the development of that pursuit. Mr. President, they have said we need to address gender-based violence and harassment, implement policies aimed at eliminating gender-based violence and harassment in the workplace, ensuring that domestic workers have accessibility recourse to the Sexual Harassment Tribunal. This step is essential to safeguarding the dignity and safety of domestic workers across Jamaica. And they have said that we must promote the ratification of ILO Convention C-190, which addresses violence harassment in the world of work. This would reinforce our commitment to provide a safer and respectful workplace, providing an environment for workers, including domestic workers. This convention, sir, is a crucial step in providing holistic protection. So, Mr. President, the work of domestic workers is invaluable, yet their conditions remain precarious. And so through improved legislations, through social protections, through training, and the support for union-led initiatives like those of the JHW, we can ensure that domestic workers enjoy the respect, the security, and the professional development they deserve. These steps outlined today represent a commitment to a just society in which every worker is valued and respected. Let us turn the promise of our legal framework into tangible protections that enrich the lives of our domestic workers and, by extension, sir, strengthen our nation. Mr. President, in concluding my presentation today, moving Jamaica forward. President, as a trade unionist and as a senator, I stand firmly on the conviction that Jamaica's future rests in a collaborative, resilient, and fair approach to development. A vision where every worker, every citizen, and every industry plays a role in moving our nation forward. In advancing this vision, so we recognize the essential work of the National Partnership Council of Jamaica, an institution through which this government has fostered essential alliances across private sector, civil society, and labor. And as we continue to confront the rapid shifts in the world of work, we must also bolster this partnership model, ensuring that Jamaica's progress is shared and that our collective goals are met with equal commitment and benefit for all. Mr. President, tourism, the livelihood of our economy, has shown tremendous resilience to challenges. But we must go further to cultivate a future grounded in human capital development and climate resilience. Investing in our workforce and in sustainable practices will ensure that tourism remains not just a source of income, but a driver of secure livelihoods and environmental protection for generations to come. President, in moving Jamaica forward, we must reaffirm our commitment to occupational safety and health. I urge this government to reintroduce the Occupational Safety and Health Act to Parliament, underscoring the right of every worker to a safe, supportive working environment. Coupled with this, a national workplace and wellness policy. It will create conditions for our workforce to thrive, benefiting not only just individuals, but our collective economic health and productivity. Moreover, sir, it is time, Mr. President, that we reject all forms of precarious employment and build a nation grounded in the principle of decent work. This provides stability, respect, and fair compensation. Precarious work, sir, precarious employment has no place in a prosperous Jamaica. We will foster an economy that uplifts, not exploits, those who contribute to its growth. Finally, sir, I call upon this Senate and all Jamaicans to support ongoing efforts to promote the rights and welfare of our domestic workers. These individuals, sir, they are invaluable members of our workforce. They deserve the same rights. They deserve the same protection. They deserve the respect as any other category of worker. And together, we must turn our legal frameworks into daily realities that safeguard the well-being and advance the social protection for economic standing. Mr. President, moving Jamaica forward is not merely a policy agenda. It is a pledge by this government to create a Jamaica that values equity, safety, and respect in every sphere. It is our duty to ensure that progress reaches every Jamaican, that work brings dignity, and that prosperity and resilience are shared across all walks of life. This government is of the profound view that we can move Jamaica forward. Together, let us make the commitments today that will secure a brighter and more inclusive tomorrow for all. I thank you, Mr. President. And so, I would have today, sir, commenced the debate, and I urge my other colleagues to support in continuing the debate. And so I ask for a suspension of the debate for future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator President General. The question is that the State of the Nation. The executive, okay. The question is that the debate be suspended for a date to be agreed. Those in favor? Aye. Against? Ayes have it. Leader, just before you ask for the recommittal of the outstanding matter, questions and answers thereto, we were joined by a number of students and teachers from the Avondale Preparatory and Kindergarten School on Retirement Road. So welcome to the Senate, and I hope that would you teachers stand, because all of you look like students. Welcome. Welcome, you're always welcome here, and thank you very much for deciding to spend some time with us today. We certainly appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Get all-day allergy relief with new instantly soothing Claritin Liquid. Live Claritin Clear.
Item, questions and answers there to be recommitted. Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Senator Sinclair? Senator Gale?
Thank you, Mr. President, and allow me to thank Senator Gale for his evocative, wide-ranging, and thought-provoking presentation, which made an impressive series of recommendations for deeper consideration, and all, of course, geared at the empowerment of our workers, their protection, and their, of course, the creation of the circumstances within which they can thrive in an ever-changing world. So we thank him very much for his contribution, for his opening of the debate, and the contribution to the discourse on workers' rights. Mr. President, as I start to take the questions at number 3, standing in the name of Senator Fraser Binns, I just wanted to place the answers in the context of 3 points to make them clear. Oh, you want, oh yes, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. President, I now ask.
Senator Fraser Binns.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now ask that the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the leader of government business, provide response to question number 3 and the notice paper standing in my name.
Minister.
Mr. President, 3 points. You should have it. What's that? Really? Errors? You will get them back, and there are no errors, although there is a sentence that I have inserted. I imagine, but I thought that that would be... what I will do, though, there is a question in which I've inserted a line, and that can be inserted in a PDF that I send by email after, and I'll point out where it is. But again, just to contextualize these answers, I wanted to make 3 points. One, that the phrase deep sea mining, because of the words that comprise it, it tends to give many people the impression or the understanding that we're discussing something that is taking place right now. But there is no deep sea mining authorized anywhere in the world. Deep sea mining, if and when it shall take place, is something that's also discussed in respect of the area. And the area is not simply anywhere that is a deep sea, per se. It's not simply somewhere that's offshore. It speaks to the deep sea bed and the ocean floor in geographically defined areas named in the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, which are beyond the exclusive economic zone of any country. So they are in the Clarion-Clipperton zone, they are in the central Indian Ocean, they are in the mid-Atlantic ridge, and I believe there's another area. Again, these are places way beyond any national jurisdiction and beyond any economic exclusive zone. And so when people speak about this concept, it is not something that is near, and in fact, that's near to any country. And in fact, it is part of this that feeds into the concept, which was very hard fought for, that the deep seabed is the common heritage of mankind. And Jamaica, decades ago, led the fight for this common heritage of mankind principle to be maintained, and we continue to seek for its retention in the developing jurisprudence around deep sea mining. And the third thing that I want to say, Mr. President, is that Jamaica takes very seriously, our role as host of the International Seabed Authority. We are the only developing country to host an international organization, and therefore our role as host, the home of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and as a member of the Council, the Executive Council, we take very seriously our role and the need for us to be balanced in our positions on this matter. So the first question, does the government of Jamaica have a policy or a position in relation to deep sea mining? And the answer, the government of Jamaica has adopted a position on deep sea mining grounded in the principles of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, we'll call it UNCLOS going forward, and shaped by developments as they have unfolded over time in meetings of the International Seabed Authority, which is headquartered in Kingston. If the answer to the above is yes, can the minister indicate what is the policy or position? And the position is as follows. The government of Jamaica, recognizing that the deep seabed and its resources are the common heritage of humankind, is guided by the need to develop a robust regulatory regime that ensures the peaceful, equitable, and efficient use of these resources while also preserving and protecting the marine environment. Acknowledging the potential economic benefits as well as the potential environmental risks, Jamaica would only support exploitation in the area if comprehensive regulations and a strong environmental protection framework are in place. Jamaica is committed to developing balanced regulations aligned with the provisions of UNCLOS and maintains advocacy for science-based decision-making on matters concerning the protection of deep-sea ecosystems. As provided for by the UNCLOS, the government believes that properly regulated commercial exploitation in the area through public-private partnerships could be beneficial to and leveraged by small and developing nations like Jamaica to advance growth and development and to attain the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. This view aligns with the obligations and broadly espoused positions of state parties under UNCLOS to establish a regulatory framework for exploitation in the area that upholds environmental protection, benefits all humanity, and ensures the sustainable use of deep-sea resources. The next question is, can a copy of the said policy be provided? Jamaica's position on deep-sea mining is set out above. Given the incremental nature of the development process, that is the development of the position, reference may also be made to statements delivered at meetings of the International Seabed Authority, as well as other relevant fora. And these statements are generally available on the website of the ISA. 3, if the answer to the above is no, can the minister state the reason for not having a position on this important matter? As the response to question 1 indicates, the government of Jamaica, like other governments and states, has adopted an official position on deep-sea mining, which is one that finds support across a broad cross-section of countries. The position will ground the ultimate development of a policy. And many countries have maintained an official position on deep-sea mining while working towards the development of definitive policies. And I can state off the bat countries as developed as Germany and Japan, or as small and capacity constrained as Nauru, and many others that have taken this position given its incremental and developmental pace. 4, could the minister indicate whether Jamaica has sponsored any company in relation to deep-sea mining exploration? Answer. For under-resourced, developing countries like Jamaica, the ability to participate in exploration activities in the area and the eventual regulation, protection, and potential benefit from the common heritage of mankind is enshrined in the Convention and only practicable through partnerships. that is becoming a sponsorship state. It is within this context that Jamaica took the decision to sponsor a contractor to apply for a contract for exploration in the area. Jamaica was the second Caribbean country after Cuba and the sixth small island developing state to sponsor a contractor for exploration in the area. And the ISA has thus far issued 30 contracts to 21 contractors for the exploration of 3 types of mineral resources in the area. States sponsoring these contracts include 9 developing and 7 small island states, including Cuba, the Cook Islands, Kiribati, Nauru, Singapore, and Tonga. And I just want to again emphasize that this framework was developed because it was understood when the UNCLOS was being negotiated that the only way that small island states, that developing states, would ever be able to benefit from any eventual economic activity in those areas because of the capital cost of same would be through sponsorship arrangements. So the UNCLOS embodies a framework which demands that if a company is seeking to enter into exploration, it must be sponsored by a small state. So it requires support of a developing country. The next question is, if the answer is yes, can the minister indicate, 1, the name of the company? The name of the company that Jamaica has sponsored is Blue Minerals Jamaica Limited. 2, the terms of the agreement. The terms of the sponsorship agreement with Jamaica, as with all other states, are confidential. I can, however, confirm that Jamaica has no financial obligation under this agreement. 3, what, if any, are the potential liabilities of Jamaica being a sponsor of deep-sea mining exploration? And the line that has been inserted at the start of this answer is, as a sponsoring state, Jamaica is not liable for the actions of the contractor. Then continues as a sponsoring state, liability for Jamaica under the UNCLOS, because this is where it arises, would only arise for breaching its due diligence obligations, and again, for emphasis, not for the direct actions of the contractor, as these would be governed by a separate contract with the ISA. Jamaica's due diligence obligations are to establish laws and regulations by the time exploitation, that is mining, begins. And remember, as I started, I said there's no mining authorized anywhere. And a draft cabinet submission for the preparation of drafting instructions is being finalized. It is again important to emphasize that no mining has been approved by the ISA to take place at this time. 4, whether being a sponsor legally binds the government to support deep-sea mining. Under the UNCLOS, being a sponsoring state for exploration does not legally bind the government to support deep-sea bed mining. What it does do, or Jamaica, like other states who are parties to the 1994 agreement under UNCLOS, I believe it's part 11, and as a member of the ISA Council, Jamaica is obligated to support the development of regulations for compliance and oversight of activities in the area to ensure that they benefit humankind as a whole and effectively protect the marine environment. 5, can a copy of said agreement be provided? As indicated above in question 5.2, the nature of the sponsorship agreement is such that the terms provide for confidentiality. This is not unusual, it is standard across the piece. However, it is to be noted that perhaps of more interest, the extracts from the contract between Blue Mineral Jamaica Limited and the International Seabed Authority, so that is the contract that actually authorizes exploration. Those are available on the Seabed Authority's website, so that the matters which concern, we anticipate rather, would more deeply concern you and would have grounded these questions would be found through a visit to the Seabed International Seabed Authority website. And so I will end the questions there, and I'm open for any further follow-up.
Mr. President?
Senator Fraser-Binns.
Thank you, Mr. President, and let me thank Minister for the answers that she has provided. Minister, before I follow up, I just want to say one thing, because you did mention, and with good reason, to explain that when we talk about deep-sea mining, we're not talking about anything nearby. And we are agreed on that. However, as climate change has shown us, we can't consider anything to do with the environment in this case with the oceans in isolation. So although for the purpose of deep sea mining, it does not take place in any national territorial waters, the fact is that whatever the effects are, good or bad, that they will have the potential of affecting the entire world. So I just wanted to make that clear. So whereas we agree that it doesn't take place in our local waters, that we ought not to see it in isolation. The second thing as well is, whereas deep sea mining has not started by way of a license from the International Seabed Authority, what we do know, which was borne out in your answer, is that deep sea mining exploration has commenced. And I think it is the commencement of the exploration of deep seabed mining that has raised concerns by several nations and other stakeholders about deep sea mining. So I just wanted to say that in my opening. In relation to the specific questions, Minister, I am still not sure what exactly is the policy of the government of Jamaica in terms of deep seabed mining. I have looked at question 1, I've looked at question 2, and I'm unclear. So I hope that perhaps for my benefit and certainly for those who are listening, if you could just state expressly in simple language what is Jamaica's policy in terms of deep sea mining. And the other thing is, if you could be a little clearer for me in terms of question 2 that says, indicate what is the policy position. Is it that as at today, November 8th, 2024, Jamaica is not in support of deep sea mining? Or is it that we have not taken a position? Or thirdly, are we waiting to see? It's not clear. No, Minister, it's not clear. So if you could answer, I've given you 3 options. 1, is the policy in support of deep seabed mining? Or 2, have we not taken a policy? Or 3, are we waiting to see the results of the exploration that is taking place now before a decision is taken by the government of Jamaica in terms of deep seabed mining? I believe, Minister, those are the 2 questions in relation to questions 1 and 2. And for question 5, the terms of the agreement, you mentioned about having access from the ISA website for the agreement between the ISA and Blue Minerals. But that is not the agreement to which I spoke. I spoke specifically about the agreement between the government of Jamaica and Blue Minerals. And I can appreciate that there may be some things that are confidential in it. I will appreciate that. But at the same time, Minister, I hope you'll also understand that this is such a new area which has a lot of attention. And as such, people want to know what is it that Jamaica has signed on to. You have stated that we have no liability, but we still would like to see the content of that. For example, we now know that Blue Minerals Jamaica has transferred its shares to a Swiss company. Is that something that was provided in the contract? We don't know. Is there a breach of the contract? We do not know. So these are some of the things that I think are of concern to us as Jamaicans. And even if you're not able to answer now, I certainly would want us to ventilate the issue a little bit more, Minister, because the truth is we are guided by UNCLOS. But what we do know is that a decision has not been made for deep sea mining, because the regulations and the rules that govern deep seabed mining have not been finalized as yet. And so that hasn't started. But we also know that there are genuine concerns that a country such as Jamaica has to consider. And Minister, let me be clear. I completely understand why any country would want to sponsor because of the benefits. But the question then is, do the benefits outweigh the potential danger that science has shown that can occur? And I'm hoping, Minister, it's not on my question, but I'm hoping that if the position of the government is that we have not taken a definitive decision on deep seabed mining, that if and when that decision is made, that there'll be consultation. You spoke in your response about the cabinet submission and the draft legislation pursuant to being a sponsoring state. And Minister, for something that touches and concerns all of us, I'm hoping that there'll be consultation with all stakeholders, including the opposition for the time being. Because make no joke, Minister, that when we become government, we will consult with that side as to whether we will support deep sea mining or not, because that is what's about. Issues of the environment must be consultative and, as Kavon said, inclusive. Thank you, Madam.
Minister.
Okay, so it's exactly what I explained to you about the line having been inserted on liability, to make it clear that we are not, that's what's there. And I think there may have been an S of obligation in a paragraph if the opposition wants to make a point of having been deprived of that in the first place. Let me start at the point that my understanding of a policy is a published document approved by cabinet after a parliamentary process which includes the development of a green paper and a white paper, which also embodies a broader consultative process, that is what a policy is. That document does not exist in respect of deep sea mining. As explained, there is an iterative a role or process that has been taking place. This is something that only now that exploration exists, and yes, I was clear. I thought I was clear on that on the point. Clearly not. Exploitation does not exist, but exploration under a mining code exists. There are regulations which exist that guide exploration, so that there is currently a protective mechanism that exists in respect of exploration. And this, therefore, distinctly distinguishes it from mining or exploitation, which is the negotiation process in respect of regulations for which are underway. So the sponsorship arrangement, well, no, let me go back to policy. Let me not move out, but the issues are deeply interconnected. Jamaica has taken a position, and the position has developed over time, which is why and I've stated what the position is. The position is not something that can be said in a sentence. It says that essentially we believe that the commercial benefit of exploitation should be and can be leveraged by small island states like Jamaica when and if an appropriate and environmentally sound, scientifically based regulatory framework is in place. So we believe in science-based decision making. We believe in ensuring that there is a strong environmentally sound protective framework within the, under the UNCLOS in place prior to or in order for mining to take place. That is our position. It is stated in the manner in which it is stated because these matters are extremely technical, and the discussions and negotiations that continue in the Seabed Authority, in council every year, that these continue to be in place. Now, the fact is that much of the discourse, well, actually, let me not. Which is why I presumed you had phrased your question in that way, which is to ask whether there's a policy or a position. So I said we don't have a policy because that follows a particular process. But I just explained the position to you. So that's now, I think, should be clear. And if you want me to repeat it again, I am happy to. And this is that Jamaica believes, consistent with the hard-fought, as stated earlier, position of the benefits of the deep sea bed being the common heritage of mankind, that the deep sea bed resources can be leveraged by small island developing states and small developing countries like Jamaica in the event that there is an environmentally sound, scientifically based regulatory framework in place. And that's what we believe. This is the broad and balanced approach, which is more largely held throughout the membership of the Seabed Authority. That is the membership similar to the membership of the UN. And is, as I said earlier, consistent with our position as host of the Seabed, which is one that we think it is only appropriate to take a balanced position within. So we support science, we support exploration for this reason, because exploration is the only way that you will improve the knowledge base, the body of research which exists. Now on the sponsorship agreement, as I stated earlier, holds no financial obligations for Jamaica. But there are benefits, technical capacity training, etc. I can speak to that. And there would be eventually financial benefits as well. However, the sponsorship agreement is simply, and I did say this earlier, the means by which a company is authorized to apply for authorization from the Seabed Authority in order to explore. So it is not a substantive agreement on its whole. And we're not aware of any breach of the agreement in the change of shareholdings, and they did provide notice when that was to take place. So in terms of the development of a policy, when that process progresses a little more, there will be broader consultation, because that is a part of that's a necessary part of the development of a policy. But it is not unusual, because of the academic nature of the negotiations and the incremental nature of the development of issues in relation to the seabed, that countries normally adopt a position and then feed into a policy. Things are happening. We're there. We're hosts. We're at council every year. You can't just say you don't have a position or you don't have a policy. You have to be actively considering this matter with the experts, and that we have been doing, because it is important to us. And I hope that that has made your concerns clear.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Minister, for that clarification. So we are then clear that Jamaica has not taken a position to say that it is in support of deep sea mining or that it is against deep sea mining. Oh, actually, I am, Minister. I'm just trying to understand what you have said. And the question I'm saying to you, Minister, is no, Minister, I don't need to do that. Minister. The question is.
No, but sorry. Is it you had posed?
Beautiful speech, you're showing motives.
You had posed a question, Senator Fraser Binns, and the ministers responded, and the response was repeated on, I think, 2 occasions. You have risen again, and you are asking the same question.
No, I'm not.
That's what you just did.
Mr. President, I am not. I am seeking to ensure that my understanding is correct. And my understanding from what the minister is saying is that as of now, Jamaica has not taken a position to say that they're in favor of deep sea mining, nor has it said we are not in favor. I just want to ensure that my understanding is correct. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Your understanding is not correct.
Okay, Senator, Lambert Brown. Senator Brown.
Yeah. President, I understand that we have no obligations as a country arising from the sponsorship. But could the minister indicate to us whether or not the arrangement with the company, is it Blue Minerals, Blue Minerals Jamaica Limited, was it the result of an unsolicited bid by them, or there was an open bidding in which a number of companies sought our sponsorship? So it goes to the issue of the procurement method. And the Jamaican people would certainly wish to know whether or not in that agreement with Blue Minerals, whether or not from the fruits of their exploration, we are guaranteed a percentage of profit, of revenue. How do we benefit? Because you said benefits could flow to us, but how do we benefit? Is there a monetary benefit? Because I've seen the deal with the airports authority, with Norman Manley Airport. Is this a benefit that will flow from us? What's the timeline from which benefit will flow? Is that part of the agreement that you could share with the Jamaican people in whose name you have acted? That is, the government has acted.
Minister?
Mr. President, this is Mr. President, what I will do is I will go back and request some more information from the Ministry of Mining and within the Seabed Authority and within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well, as to I'm not the ministry, though you will recognize, all right, just since we're having clarity issues this morning. Last time I checked, thank you very much, to take guidance on the procurement aspect to which the Senate has made reference. To my understanding, this is a mere qualifying step for Blue Minerals to have applied for an authorization, to enter into an authorization contract to explore within the area with the Seabed Authority. And I therefore just want to make sure that I answer this absolutely correctly, because I'm not aware of the elements to which he has spoken. But I did say earlier that there are benefits which we will gain as a country. I did state quite clearly as well that the contract is confidential, but I have given as much as I am able to do within this context to say that there will be benefits in respect of training, capacity building, and ultimately, eventually, potentially, if mining takes place, then there will be financial benefits as well. It is not a contract for mining, and therefore, I think that is as much as I can say without placing the country in breach, which is what they seem to want me to do.
Would you agree, Minister, that this sponsorship by our beloved country, Jamaica, has a value to Blue Minerals? And is that value transferable to other companies? That is to say, Blue Mineral could receive payment, for example, from another company for transferring our sponsorship to them.
Well, you're
But
addressing respect to
I
whether
don't
there's...
understand that question, Mr. President. Perhaps you might want to reframe. I don't understand it as it stands.
Just to be clear, my question is, if there is a contract between us and Blue Mineral, is that contract beneficial to Blue Mineral? And secondly, that benefit to Blue Mineral, is it transferable that they could earn money?
Did you know you can work while protecting your SSDI benefits?
That they could earn money